right, so I think we have enough people that have kind of streamed in. I think people still will join us, but welcome all. This is our 7th meeting now of the National Tribal Resilience Data Work Group. We have a great meeting today. We were just talking about Decemberitis, so I appreciate those of you who have come. This one I'm excited because I don't know a lot about the DigitalCoast tool, but we've got folks from NOAA here today to tell us about it. So I think I probably don't need to go over the purpose necessarily why we're all coming together, but we are here to exchange information and build knowledge and try to figure out better solutions to help build access to data for tribes that are trying to pursue resilience and adaptation. And so as usual, our standing meeting will do introductions. So if you've been here before, introduce yourself over chat. If you've never been here before, and I'm not sure we have any newcomers, we like to have them introduce themselves to be hazed for the team, not just to be introduced live for the team. And we'll go into member announcements, and then we have Lori and TJ from NOAA who are here to tell us about the DigitalCoast tool. So they have a whole presentation, and we have a discussion like we always do, and I'm excited for that. So, all right, folks are starting to chat their intros. So hi, Shasta. Yep. Here comes Tom from CEC. Do you see anybody new here? Who's the 916 number? I just want to make sure we know who that is. Somebody called.
If it ends in 9048, that's my audio.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thanks, Tom. Hi.
Hey.
All right. Great. Well, Lori and TJ have actually been here before, but you're going to hear from them in just a minute. So I'll let them introduce themselves in their presentation. Let's go ahead and move into member announcements. And I do want to just open it up like I always do in case anybody has anything that they would like to share. I've got a couple of things I can share, but let me leave some space here. And this is anything in the realm of tribes, climate change, health, and specifically data, ideally. So is there anything happening in your spheres where you see some movement that others would enjoy learning about?
Yes. So I wasn't here last month, so I apologize for missing it. And I just want to announce that even though we don't have the save the date going out yet, I will let you know in advance that the now I can't remember what we're calling it, but there's a tribal climate summit, the Southwest Tribal Climate Summit that is sponsored by the Climate Science Alliance and the Alliance's Tribal Working Group is going to be taking place in May, fingers crossed in person, and that will be here in Paula. So we're looking for people, it's Southwest focused, but we are looking for folks from anywhere and everywhere who are interested in attending or learning more about our tribal work group, especially because we're hoping that it provides a model for tribal work groups in other parts of the country.
Cool, thank you, Shasta. Maybe more space here for other updates. Welcome, Chaz, thanks for joining.
Sorry, I'm late.
Yeah, no big deal. That reminds me, Shasta. So Shasta and Serena. So Serena is on our team here working with the Tribal Climate Health Project now. And we are all starting to talk about a summit that we are working on planning for next year. And we're looking for speakers. And I'm bringing it up here because I'm wondering if anybody here has any recommendations for researchers sort of on the cutting edge of some interesting tribal climate and health adaptation research, like topics that are emerging that we might be able to fold into our summit. If so, you could share them out loud with me on chat, over email, however you'd like. Any other updates from folks around the country?
I actually have a couple of things, and I apologize I was late, but NIDIS is organizing a tribal drought workshop or summit, I guess, work conference in January. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay.
I am anyway. I know I got an email about it and immediately said, ooh, drought and tribes. So yeah, it's definitely something that we are interested in here.
So I guess they've had very little I don't think it's been very well advertised or marketed. So I think they've only got like 20 registrants right now.
Oh,
And so I think the dates are the 18th and 19th of January.
okay.
I will try to, after I'm done talking, I'll go find that email and try to share that with folks. But just wanted to let people know that it's going to be going on, and they'd love to get more registrations if possible. It's free to attend.
Thanks, Chaz. Yeah, I got that, and now I can't find it either. So I hope I'm not confusing it with something else, but I know I saw something about it.
Yeah, I'll share that. And then, yeah, we are going to be hiring an assistant tribal liaison, an assistant to myself at the the affiliated tribes Northwest Indians will be hiring, and we're going to be releasing that position description probably today or tomorrow, just so people know. There's 5 or 6 other tribal liaison positions around the nation available right now as well.
Yeah.
So finding qualified folks is going to be a challenge, just because finding people to employ everywhere seems to be a challenge. And we're also hiring 2 interns right now for their climate fellows. So
Yeah, please send those, because I am just finishing up an 18-month program, a remote program through University of Oklahoma. It's their Master of Legal Studies in Indigenous Peoples Law. And I was one of the old people in the program, but there's all these young and hungry, mostly, tribal citizens, tribal folks who are finishing the program. And I said, send me an email if you want me to put you on my list where I forward job opportunities. And several of them reached out and said, yes, please, please, please. So, if you want some young, newly minted master's students who now have a good background in Indigenous law, I will send those opportunities their way.
it sounds great. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll share it with a list.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah. I wonder, anybody else have any announcements? And I wanted to encourage Lisa. I don't know if you're prepared to say anything. I know you're doing some listening sessions on your vulnerable population or vulnerable communities program. Feel free to share now or maybe another time.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that, Angie. Yes, so placed in the California Governor's Office of Planning and Research, working on what we're currently calling the Vulnerable Communities Platform, working on the solicitation that's about to go out within the next couple months for that right now. We started with 2 listening sessions this past month in November, one focused on rural communities, one focused on tribal communities. And this afternoon, I'm working on some of the synthesis. So we'll be sharing out some high level themes that we heard from both of those communities. Happy to share that high level summary with folks here, if that'd be helpful. And our commitment is, anything we're sharing out is going to remove any sort of identifying information. And we also did not record in order to preserve confidentiality, but happy to share out what we've heard in case it's helpful for other people in their work too. And also inviting input, moving forward. We know the times were tricky and calendars are a mess. Thanks.
Lisa, I think I'm looking for a March speaker if that's something you'd be interested in. Okay. I also wanted to give a little space to Temet, and I think I said that right. We just met, but he's new to this group, and we usually ask people who are new to the group to introduce themselves. Do you want to just briefly just tell us who you are, where you're from, what you're working on?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So Temet McMichael, thanks, Angie, for the invite, and just sort of here for awareness to learn and see how I can contribute and participate. So I am a CDC COVID-19 field assignee. I'm assigned to the Public Health Department in San Diego County, and helping with a few different things. I was trained as a laboratorian, but now I'm sort of working in epi, and so now I'm an epidemiologist and working on a few different things, mostly tribal stuffs, but also lab-related things. And so I'm originally from the La Jolla Indian Reservation, which is one of the Luiseño tribes in San Diego County, both Luiseño and Wailaki. And so those are just kind of some of the things that I bring to the table, and some of the more current things I'm working on is just making sure that there's a system in place in communicating tribal data back to tribes, and so that they can have their own sort of public health information and take the actions that they need for the local communities.
Annette, would it be safe to assume that you are related to Sky?
Yeah, he's my brother.
I kind of thought so. Yeah, he worked here in Paula for a long time.
He did, yep.
It's a small world. You should also meet Isabel with the county as well, who you probably are now connecting with. So, okay, well, thanks everybody. Any other final announcements? All right. I do want to just follow up for a second on our last meeting, which was super good. If you weren't there, we talked about data gaps and we were compiling them. And I just wanted to share with you all that the Tribal Climate Health Project that was very useful for us. So we are working on our Southern California Data Development Project for 6 tribes in Southern California. And poor Serena, who's on the phone here today, has been just mercilessly compiling data in our gigantic, easy data gathering tool for all of these tribes. And we are now doing at the point where we're requesting data from CTEC and probably others. But we came up, now we have a really nice little list. So we're asking for more data than we've ever gotten before. So some of what you guys have said is starting to encourage us to go after more data in places we hadn't asked before. So that food security topic we talked about made it in. We're talking about even cases of things like hantavirus and valley fever and yeah, so we have a whole list and I can share that list with you all sometime, but I just wanted to thank you for participating in the conversation. And these are on an ongoing basis going to continue to help us as we try to fill gaps. Okay, so with that, I think we should move on to our speakers, I'm sorry. So I want to introduce Lori Kathy Cathera, which I hope I said correctly, and TJ Moore from NOAA, who are going to tell us about the DigitalCoast tool. So they're going to present, and then we get to have a discussion like we always do, where we're trying to noodle in on what, how this is serving tribes and, whether there's some other solutions all of us should be considering here. All right, take it away, you guys. Thank you for being here.
Awesome. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, first, thank you, Angie, for inviting us to come and speak with you. We're really excited to be here and share some of our resources with you today. We're going to cover sort of 3 things in our 15-ish minutes. I'm going to give you a quick overview, just a little bit of a flavor of our office, of where we work. And then we're going to dive into the DigitalCoast and give you an overview of that resource, and then some of the specific products that are contained within it. TJ and I are going to tag team the presentation. So when it's his turn to speak, he'll give you a little bit more, he'll give his own intro in just a minute. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Lori Carey Cathera, and I am the operations manager at our Office for Coastal Management. I'm located in Charleston, South Carolina, and my role, a big piece of my portfolio is to manage and oversee the DigitalCoast, which we're going to share with you here in just a minute. And just to let you guys know, this is a super fast overview. And so as we go along, if you have questions or there's things that you want to circle back on, please put them in the chat, and we'd love to dig in with those ideas with you. Also, just so you know, guys are aware, we're looking to learn more about the needs of tribal communities as well. And so if you have feedback to offer us on products or just questions, or want to chat further post this presentation, we're very interested and willing to do that. Next slide, please. So just real quick, our office, we are the office, we're called the Office for Coastal Management. We have about 250 folks that work within our office. And as you can see from the map, we are located all over the place. Those little dots represent staff, and sort of I think each dot is actually supposed to represent a staff member, but it just kind of gives you a flavor for how we are dispersed. While we are a national organization, we do have a regional presence, and we try to work really closely with folks on the ground to hear their needs and making sure that we're developing products and resources that they can really use. Next slide. So with that said, we really have 4 major programs that we focus on in our office. We have legislation that directs these programs, and they're focused on the coastal zone management, the National Estuarine Research Reserve, the coral reef conservation, and then of course DigitalCoast. The first three don't really have a lot of time to talk about, but we could definitely explore more if you're interested. But those first three are fairly significant grant programs that we work with the states as well as locals in implementing those programs. But what we're here today to do is really do a deeper dive on DigitalCoast. So next slide, please. So we'll go ahead and get right to the main event. So DigitalCoast is, it sort of has two, it doesn't sort of, it has two prongs to it. The web present, which you're looking at right now, and the partnership, which I'll speak to in just a minute. The website provides, that's what, just like what the slogan says, it's more than just data. So what we have done is we're a curated site that provides data, tools, trainings, and then shows applications of how all of that information is being used to address real coastal issues. Next slide. So one of the things that helps us make the site relevant and useful to the coastal community is through this DigitalCoast partnership. The partnership is formed with 8 national organizations. These organizations have connections and support the coastal community. They're usually all member organizations, and they've been really helpful in helping us, one, as I said, understand what the needs are, but then also sharing out the resources and getting those dispersed a little bit more broadly than we could do within our own organization. Over time, this group has been around for about 15 years. We started DigitalCoast back in 2007. And so over time, these groups have learned, they were a little bit untraditional when we first started working with them, and have really dug in, learned each other's strengths, and have leveraged and done a number of pilot projects, and also work across the partnership to bring in key speakers to their different workshops and conferences. And again, just helping to amplify that message and leverage all the work that's going on in the coastal arena. Next slide. So with that, I'll turn back to the website and kind of give you sort of a high-level overview of the different sections of the site. And then I'm going to turn it over to TJ, and he's going to dig in deeper on a couple of these products as we move. So the first section is the data section. And we have almost 3,000 data sets that are available through this site. Again, they are curated, and we tend to focus on national data sets. The exception of that is with our LiDAR data. LiDAR is a critical, we've heard since the beginning of our organization that LiDAR is a really critical data set. And as LiDAR is available, we make that accessible through this website. So just to kind of give you a flavor of how you would look for data in here, I would click on this land cover button right there, the globe. Yep, thanks, Angie. And then you can do next slide. And if you were to click on that, that sort of jump starts the querying and narrows it down to the land cover data sets that we have. And you can see we have 166 different data sets that are focused around land cover. You can then use down the side, it's a little bit cut off there in the thing, but those are the filters, and you can narrow it down further by focus area. You can also narrow it down by geography. Each one of those entries where you see it says like the year 2016 CCAP regional land cover data set, those are each the individual data sets that you can download. You also have the option to look at the metadata, and then there's a preview button that gives you a sense of what the geographic footprint of that data set is. And those little eye buttons, you can get even more information about the data and the program. And what's really great is if you decide that you want that data, you can go ahead and download it right away. Okay, next slide. And just to give you a little bit of a flavor, I've mentioned that we are coastally focused. This is a view from our DAVE application, our data access viewer, that TJ is going to talk about a little bit later in the presentation, and you can kind of get a sense of the data coverage that we have within the site and sort of what our footprint looks like. Next slide. All right, so on to tools. We have a number of tools that are available through DigitalCoast. They cover a wide range of topics, from looking at where beaches are renourished. We have a tool that focuses on historical hurricanes, and we also have tools that focus on sea level rise viewing. Most of these have a geospatial element in this tool section. They have a geospatial element, and they can be used to address a wide range of issues and be used with folks that have a wide range of technical expertise as well too. And again, you can search on them and narrow down the field based on focus area or the type of application that it is. Next slide. And we also have a training section. This section of the site has grown quite a bit over time. We have found when we were developing the DigitalCoast effort, one of the things that we heard loud and clear from folks was that it wasn't enough just to give them the data and the tools, that they also needed a little bit of help in understanding how those things could be applied and used. And so that's where this the DigitalCoast Academy comes in. And it's a training, it's access to all of our training information. It's sort of divided into two components. There's the scheduled training on the left, which is when we get back to in-person, there's in-person training that is available, as well as online training. If you're interested in that, you can pursue the holdings and sign up for those. You can also, if you're interested, explore hosting some of those trainings with us. And then on the right side of the screen, it lists a little bit of on-demand products. So those are products that you can use yourself whenever you're interested. And again, they cover a very wide range of topics. So for example, there's a self-guided resource on learning about LiDAR data and how you can use it and what it is and how you can contract it out. But there's also a self-guided resource on how to facilitate a meeting and work with stakeholders. So it's a really broad range of topics designed to really help a coastal professional do the things that they need to get their job done. Next slide. And then the topics page, this is a really great section if you're new to DigitalCoast and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and maybe you don't think in terms of data tools and training. We've heard from a lot of folks that are managers or decision makers that they sort of think more issue-based. And so this part of the website provides an opportunity for you to see what resources are available for your particular issue. We've just updated this section and we've added the coastal inundation topic. And you can dig in there and look and see what sort of resources that we have available. Again, it's organized really nicely. It gives you kind of what the resource is, a couple of sentences about what it can do, and then it gives you have the ability to link directly to that resource. So this helps make it be a little less overwhelming for you. And then next slide, the last section that I wanted to talk about was stories from the field. Thanks. And so stories from the field is really coming from, when we got asked, again, initially, more so in the beginning of DigitalCoast, what do you do with all of this information? Who's using it? Stories from the field are a way that we have tracked what people are doing and how they are using that. I think we're up to over 120 stories. And if you can see, it's a little bit hard to see, but on the map up there, there's a number of blue dots, and each one of those dots represents a story of real people that have used a DigitalCoast product to address a particular issue. And again, you can go in there and you can sort by geography or topic, lots of ways to dig in there and kind of see what people are doing with the information. Next slide. And with that, I'm going to pause and turn it over to TJ.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lori. Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound good.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, thanks, Lori, and thanks for the invite, everyone. My name is TJ Moore, as Lori noted earlier, and I'm a contractor with NOAA Office for Coastal Management, and I'm the West Coast Regional Geospatial Coordinator. So the West Coast in our context here is Washington, Oregon, California, and Alaska, so a large region. I am based in Seattle, Washington, and work with our Charleston folks in headquarters, but also we have a regional office in Oakland, California, and some staff in Oregon as well. So that's our region. And as Lori noted earlier, we have an application called DAVE, or the Data Access Viewer, that allows you to explore data that's available in the coastal regions. And the focus here is on imagery data sets, on land cover data, and also elevation data like LiDAR point clouds or DEMs and so forth. And so I just wanted to give you a brief introduction to the functionality and the interface. And so if we can go to the next slide. And then if you could just space bar that, Angie. And okay. And so what you see here is I'm kind of zooming in the application, and it is looking at Washington State. And so as I scroll over the different data sets that pop up on the right-hand side, you can see there the data set extents are highlighted. You can kind of go in here and look at, you can do downloads of the data. You can look at the attributes or explore metadata for the different data sets that are stored on the import application online. And so it's just a great way to explore the data sets. If you're interested in a data set, you can add it to the cart. And so you can see that it shows up there, and then you can get access to the data via email, or you can do bulk downloads. Here I'm looking at some point cloud data associated with that area, and we have the ability to actually explore that data online with the Potree web viewer. And so it's a really interesting way to explore these large data sets to see if you might have any interest in downloading that data. And so it's a really nice clean interface to be able to make sure that you're getting data that you're interested in before you go through the download effort, because they are very large data sets. Next slide. So we also have a land cover data from our Coastal Change Analysis Program, or CCAP. And so these data are essentially the coastal expression of the National Land Cover Database. And so we produce an update every 5 years, and we're transitioning from 30-meter data resolution in the past years to high resolution data at 1 meter. And we also have a beta product at 10-meter resolution during this transition period, and a number of other products as well. And so you can see the extent of the data on this map, and also the different land cover classifications for the medium resolution and the high resolution data sets. Next slide. And then we also have a land cover atlas for CCAP, and this is a tool that you can use to explore changes in land cover between years. So let's go to the next slide, Angie, and then you can just go ahead and do a space bar on that. So here you can go in, you can pick the state that you're interested in, and then you can look at data by county or by watershed. So I'm choosing the Duwamish watershed, and then you can look at your years of interest. So I selected 1996 to 2016. And so when you go in here, you've got a general tab, and you can look at the percent area that has changed over that period, and different graphics and tabular data. There's also a section where you can look at developed land cover and a change, as well as impervious surface. And again, looking at different charts and summaries. We've got a section on forests as well, similar kind of presentation, and then also on wetlands and looking at change over time there as well. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And so the Coastal Flood Exposure Mapper is another resource that we have that's relatively new on the West Coast. We expanded it a few years ago to the West Coast. And so it makes it easy to explore and map data and share your maps with others. And so you don't really have to be a GIS expert to dig into the data, but data are available for download or for access if you want to do GIS work. So we can go ahead and take a look at that on the next slide here. And then you can do a space bar on that. And so when we go into the application here, you can see we've got a data set that's already presented there, and that's did that not?
Do you need me to do something? Do you need me to go to the next?
Oh, it seems like it.
Oh,
Oh,
pause.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah, pause. Yeah.
Sorry.
So we have a coastal flood hazard composite data set that's displayed there with an overlay of 11 different flood hazards. You can change the base map as well on here. You can share your URL for this map representation. And I'm just going to go ahead and look at Charleston, South Carolina. And give you a kind of a zoomed in view of the data. And so if we go over to the left-hand side and click on that panel here, you can see that we've got coastal flood hazard composite data shown. There's an information button where you can get a description of the data sets. And so if you're interested in kind of saving that view, you can save that to a map collection. So you can see that it's been saved there, added to my collection. Then we can kind of turn on and off different layers. And so this is high tide flooding. Can add that to our map collection as well if we're interested in eventually sharing that with others. We've got other types of flood hazards like sea level rise, inundation, and so you can look at different levels there and save that. If we go further down in this tab here, you've got societal exposure data like population density and poverty and elderly, and we can look at the different data layers there and save them if we're interested in them. Then there's also ecosystem exposure as well, and so I've saved one of those views. And then in this saved maps collection, you can take a look at what you've saved, and you can then go ahead and share out that collection with others. So that's really a great way to be able to, just kind of create maps and share them with colleagues when you're working on projects. So you can go to the next slide. And then finally, in terms of the tools here, we have ENOW Explorer, and that's a great way to dive into economic data. It was recently refreshed, and it's a fantastic resource that is really data rich and easy to navigate. And ENOW stands for the Economics National Ocean Watch. So we can go into the next slide there, Angie. And so I'm just going to show you for Alaska, I'm going to choose a county of Anchorage and click on go. And on the left-hand side here, we've got employment data for total ocean economy. We've got another tab here where you can break it out by establishments for total ocean economy. And then you can look at wages. And then finally, we've got GDP as well data. And so it's a very interactive interface. You can explore the data, scroll over different elements and look at the data. You can export graphics for your reports. And then at the top here, we've got the total ocean economic data broken out by sectors. So you can see them there as I'm scrolling along to ship and boat building and marine transportation and mineral extraction and tourism and recreation and so forth. And so it's really a great resource to be able to explore data interactively and integrate it into your reports. And then on the next slide, yes, we've got there's a lot of applications, hard to really talk about them all, and I've included some more here as well, but you might want to check those out. But this is just a quick sampling of all of the tools that we have, and I wanted to encourage you to explore the DigitalCoast, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. And then the next slide. And then that's it for the questions, but we're happy to talk to you about, or for the presentation, but we're happy to talk to you about any questions or any ideas that you might have.
Well, oh my goodness. Let me just say that's the most beautiful tool I have seen. Just the way it's designed. And I want to open it up. I have questions, but I want to open it up for anybody else.
I have questions. This is Shasta. And I'm also, I'll be curious to hear, both Timet and Chaz's opinions and perspectives on this as well. I know that, particularly in the Pacific Northwest regions, there's a lot of issues with treaty lands, tribal treaty lands and traditional use areas and that sort of thing. And what I'm curious about, and this is putting on my tribal historic preservation officer hat, whether you have relationships with the tribes up there where you worked with them on making sure that any sensitive data was kept out of the LiDAR maps.
Yeah, we have had. I mean, I've had some interactions with our folks that are involved in the 3DEP program, which is the 3D elevation program that's kind of managed out of USGS. Yeah. And yeah, they have an office where I think requests are made to try to suppress data for various considerations. And so there have been cases in the Pacific Northwest where there have been some tribes who have suggested that certain data should be suppressed. And so it kind of goes through that process, and we try to try to remove those data for those tribal areas as best as possible, having conversations with the tribes. And so that is definitely on the radar, so to speak, in terms of interactions.
Yeah, and I also, just in terms of when you're talking to tribes, I might say certain data has been protected rather than suppressed.
Okay, all right.
That kind of gives me a little bit of a communist, China feel. help! I'm being repressed. And I mean, and the thing is, I think this is a beautiful tool. I do, but my ears always perk up a little bit when we can get kind of fine-grained landscape data, because sometimes there's sacred sites or landforms or things like that tribes are protective of. But in general, I think this is lovely. I agree with Angie, and no offense to anybody else's data tools, but this was like watching a fun little movie. So that was great.
Yeah, I'll just state that the tool looks amazing. It looks like it has a lot of really helpful information. And I was curious when it was developed, or is it just now being released? But one thing I always struggle with is that there's a lot of these tools available that I feel like get buried on the web because it's just so hard to find them all. And I don't have an answer for the solution to that problem, but I'm sure that there's a lot of tribes that would be interested in this tool. And I'm curious. I was also related to Shasta's question. Our tribal area, I started to zoom in, but are any tribal areas just blanketly removed from the data sets? Because that happens sometimes. Or has there been some attempt to at least include those?
Yeah, maybe I can start, and then TJ can fill in a little bit. So it's a little bit confusing. DigitalCoast is the house for a whole bunch of stuff, right? And so that concept of having a one-stop shop, we developed that concept back probably, I think the initial site was released in 2007. Yeah. 2008 timeframe. And it has grown. When we first released the site, we had 5 data sets and 3 trainings and, just a few things. And it was mostly the content that you could find in the site was from our office. And so as it has grown, we have included, because we don't have the capacity to make everything that coastal professionals need, right? And so, and also to get at the issue that there's so much stuff out there, how do you find it all? So what we've really tried to do is focus in, and we use that DigitalCoast partnership as one of the groups that helps us do this, but to try and curate what is really going to be helpful for coastal professionals. So we don't have everything in here, but we have probably 80 to 85% of what you're looking at that would be helpful. That's really geared at a state or national level. It becomes a little bit more challenging when people are looking for parcel level data, because we just don't have the capacity to put every city or town in the site right now that's in the coastal zone. So the scale is something that, you know, we've really kind of can come down to the county level for a lot of, you know, applicability for some of our tools and the data that we have, with the exception of LiDAR data. That's obviously a little bit more fine-tuned. And as TJ mentioned, for the land cover data, we're also looking at making that finer resolution. So trying to move into a higher resolution for that data set. So, but with that said, even though we've been trying to do this, getting the word out about this resource and making sure folks are aware of it, you know, that is something that is always a bit of a challenge. And so, you know, trying to come to groups like this or going to conferences and having booths and being able to sort of do a little bit of outreach so people are aware of it. We've trying to do that, and we're trying to work sort of in a network approach to help echo and magnify the word out about the resource. So that's a little bit of the history of, you know, kind of how the site was built and how we try to market it out and what's involved in there. You know, the questions that you guys are asking about the tribal lands and the sensitivity around those, the data and making sure that we are protecting those assets. We are definitely aware of that. And I think that we have areas in the country where we're doing that maybe better than some other areas. So as TJ mentioned, there's definitely an awareness in the West Coast and Alaska to try to be inclusive with the tribes. We also have a fairly great relationship in the Great Lakes with a number of those tribes and are working with them as data is collected, working with, you know, figuring out where the tribes are located and then trying to work with them to make sure that they're comfortable with the data collection and that we have it protected and you know, it's something that they're comfortable with. I'm not sure we're in 100% compliance. Again, you know, one of the things that is challenging for us is that there's a lot of tribes and there's not necessarily a central hub for us to go and say, you know, who the point person is and to find those. And so we have a little bit of a capacity issue there. But it's definitely something that we're aware of, and we want to get better about it and making sure that you know, we're engaging with that community in an appropriate way. Does that help?
Yeah, and it's not easy, right? Because some tribes yearn for that information that's not available on their tribal lands, and other tribes are trying to get things removed from different national level data sets. So there's no simple answer except for reaching out to all the tribes. But and even then you may not get a reply, which is not always easy because they're all over capacity.
And we have a capacity issue, but they have capacity issues too, right? Like, and everybody's trying to reach out to them right now. And you know, kind of, there's some of them are sort of like uncle, which is totally fair. So, you know, I think we're in it for the long haul. And again, you know, having dialogues with you guys and some of these other groups that are helping to interface with tribal communities is super helpful. And it helps us learn and grow. And I don't know, TJ, is there anything else that you would like to add? Because you're a little bit more.
No, I think that's a really great summary, Lori. I mean, we are having conversations with BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and we're having some, you know, conversations with other federal agencies involved, like the Census Bureau, and in terms of tribal boundaries and population data and so forth. And so I think there is an ongoing conversation about boundaries and those kinds of issues. But I think that's a really good overview that you provided there, Lori. I can relate to what Chaz was saying.
I want to add a few things to that. You know, first of all, I think, Angie, you're the one who just brought up this map, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a case in point. I don't know what the yellow layer represents, but notice that it comes to a very artificial stop right on the boundaries of the Paula Reservation. So that's, I don't know where this data initially came from, but it's always kind of fascinating to me when a federal agency, who has a trust responsibility to help tribes with these issues, for whatever reason has not included the tribal trust land. But what I'm thinking on a more practical level too, and again, with the TIPO hat on, is that there are a lot of tribes that are, yes, it does flood at Paula, Lori. But yes, I wish it didn't. There are tribes that have very important, you just call them tribal cultural resources. That's sort of the legal term, that are on the coast. And I think that some of my colleagues would be very interested in seeing this so that they could take a look at inundation in areas where they know they have, for example, traditional cemeteries, that are ancient. And that there are tribes that are having problems with some of those cemeteries being eroded out of cliff banks and being impacted by storm surge and that sort of thing. So I think there is a place here for tribes that they would be very interested in seeing this. But as you said, there's a capacity issue too, and the tribes are overwhelmed. So it's still good for me to know that this exists. And I may be reaching out to you because I organized a group of California tribes where we have monthly calls, and we have a summit where we talk about the effects of all sorts of things on tribal cultural resources. And I think they would be delighted to learn more about this.
Yeah, so you're hearing these mixed messages, right? About we want more data, but don't make more data public, right?
Yeah. Well, the issue here would be that they could look for themselves. They wouldn't necessarily have to tell anybody else where the impacted sites are, but they could at least see where the inundation is, and then from internally they could say, okay, now we know.
I think that's the detailed conversation that kind of needs to happen. It's like, all right, the exposure level information a tribe wants access to. Like, it would be helpful to have the flood hazard data and the coastal inundation data mapped and usable, right? But if it were to come down to the assets on tribal lands that need to be protected, we don't want that to be made publicly available.
Right.
Yeah, that's the distinction.
And thank you for presenting that map with the Paula region there, because I will take a look at that. I mean, it looks like it's an artificial break there. So
yeah, well, I think if that came from FEMA, then that's the reason, because FEMA hasn't done flood mapping on the reservation, which why they haven't, I don't know. I mean, if I had to pick my least favorite government agency, they win the crown. But I mean, pretty much everybody is tied for terrible.
Except Noah.
Well, and I'll say this too, our current, the executive director of the National Association of TIPOs is Valerie Grusing. And I don't know if you guys know her, but she used to work for NOAA. So NOAA gets a pass.
A little one. But yeah, that's exactly where the data came from. And yeah, you were looking at exposure data.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and you're not alone. So a lot of times this is what we do. This is kind of part of why we're having these meetings, is because oftentimes there's this amazing tool, but tribal information is not there for anybody to access. So I guess we're just, it's good to put a flag for you that, if you could look at that, and sometimes we might find that the data is there, but it isn't provided by the boundary of the tribe. And so that's another issue we run into, where the scale, and you mentioned this, the scale is too large. So like county level data is super interesting, helpful, better than nothing, but also not entirely meaningful in all cases. So yeah, I think one thing I want to mention, the Tribal Climate Health Project has kind of wormed itself into this need hole where there's so many data sets and it's so difficult to navigate around them. And so I think you've created a one-stop shop for coastal professionals for everything coastal. And we're looking at it through the lens of what do tribes need to know when it comes to their climate change vulnerabilities. And so this is like a fraction of what they actually would need to know. And so we're going to go in and kind of pluck out what we can from here and put in some URLs into our tool so we can navigate tribes when they're looking at if they're trying to measure the severity and likelihood of exposures, impacts, population sensitivity, and adaptive capacity. I think you have some good metrics in here that we can pluck out. It's just going to take some mining to do it, but I'll stop there by just asking if a tribe were to approach these tools about, to try to understand their vulnerabilities, how would you Where would you point them? I mean, that's a big question, probably too big.
Yeah, I think I would have them. So on our homepage, we have contact us, and it's a form that you can fill out to ask questions. And we have staff that we actually answer every single email that comes in, and we have staff that are available for technical assistance. So I think that, you know, oftentimes it sounds like what you're looking for is a case-by-case basis. And I think coming to that site and putting a question in there would probably be the best way that we could then get someone to work with them to figure out, because it's sort of like a chicken and the egg thing, right? We have to know what they're trying to do and what the need and what the issue is. And then once we know that, we can say, well, we think these two tools or this data set or this might be the best approach to address your particular issue. So I think that would be my recommendation. TJ is our geospatial coordinator for the West Coast. And so I think if people have specific technical issues, you know, contacting TJ is something as well. He's only a one person show, so we've got some capacity issues on the West Coast because it's a ginormous region. But that's you know, part of what we do is to help people use the information. We don't just build it and put it out there and let people guess at it. So I think we can work with you, you know, as best we can to kind of help figure out how to make those connections. Usually when we make those connections, they're really great, just like this conversation is, to help us see where we have gaps and where we can improve and where we can do things that are make it easier for tribes or make the data better or protect the resources, whatever the issue is. Like hearing that, you know, we will take that action and try to incorporate that feedback as best we can in as timely manner as we can as well too.
Curious, Jessica, if you had any questions here, because she's got a great tool. She may be multitasking, but I wonder if there's anything new here that you didn't know about that you think, wow, like that's accessible, I'm going to use that. Sorry for the spotlight.
Sorry, I had to unplug my headset. I actually was aware of the DigitalCoast tool. I've used it a number of times on some other client projects. So I will admit that I hadn't gone into actually the training section. So I thought that was really interesting. And I think I've already known for a while that I'm in over my head in terms of LiDAR. And now I found your 101 PDF. So I'll be digging into that. Thank you. But I agree that the site is absolutely beautifully designed. I think kind of a theme of what you've been hearing is that, you know, a geographically specific, like saved AOI type of function would be really, really great. If you could kind of move between the different tools and have one geographic area that's applied to every map, that would be really helpful, because then you wouldn't have to kind of start at ground zero for each of the specific tools. So that would be the one piece of feedback that I would share, but I think it's a fantastic tool. I wish it was highlighted more in the US Climate Resilience Toolkit. I know it's there, but I want it to be more front and center. Like I want there to be preferred tools. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't see me at all, even though I had turned on my camera. I want it to be one of the preferred tools. And I think that's, I have a call in to the folks over there, so maybe I can bring that up again. But I agree that this is kind of one piece, as Angie was saying, it's one piece of the puzzle for coastal resource managers. Sure. But I think it's an important piece.
One other idea kind of along with that, I'm just thinking about Chaz and some of the other members of this group that aren't here today, just, some sort of a training or relationship specifically with the tribal liaisons around the country seems useful, because they're often pointing folks to the right places. So if they aren't very aware of it, maybe they should be, right? There should be a relationship there. I have one more question. That's stream flow. Is that stream flow, groundwater levels? Is that the kind of thing you offer in any of these tools? Or is that out of your wheelhouse?
Yeah, not too much. Yeah, not too much. We do have a tool, which is probably not super relevant for most of the tribes, but there is a stormwater adaptation tool where you can kind of begin to look at inundation in an urban environment and figure out kind of what some of your impacts are. But yeah, not so much stream flow.
All right. Well, I want to say a big thank you so much for that. I think Serena, you might have left for a little while, but we have a lot of work to do to go and mine through all this gem to see what we can, what we think is the most meaningful for tribes and point them to it. My last slide here is just about our next meeting, which is January 12th. And we are going to have folks from the County of San Diego Public Health group that's going to provide us an overview of their county level data set and tools, which will be just a good example of like, what is a county capable of doing and how are they're one of the counties that is really trying to reach out and support the tribes within their community. So that'll be interesting, I think. And then on February 9th, we also have somebody from OWEHA, so that's under Cal EPA, going to share the Cal Enviro Screen tool. It was just the 4.0 version was just released. So it's a California tool, but it's another good one. Lots of data and also some maybe gaps when it comes to its ability to serve tribes. And so we're going to be greeted, or well, we're going to have Walker Whelan join us. Any last comments on suggestions for any future meetings, or even anything you'd like to share to finalize out today?
Happy holidays. That's it.
All right. Well, thanks again to Lori and TJ. Thanks all for joining us, and we will see you in the new year.
Yay.
Take care.
Thanks so much for having us. Bye.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Bye now.
Angie, are you still there in Shasta?
Hi.
Did
yeah,
Shasta
Dorette,
jump
I am.
off?
I'm
It's
here.
Dorette.
Hi, Dorette. How are you?
I'm okay. I was just gonna check in with you because I'll be leaving the state imminently.
Yeah. What's the date? What's your leave
Well,
date?
my last official office day is gonna be the 17th, but I'm gonna stay on the payroll until the end of January at least. But I have like over 200 hours of unused vacation time, thanks
Oh,
to
wow.
COVID and
Yeah.
the unrelenting climate.
Yeah.
So I'm going to run that out, and then I'll be transitioning into. Oh, let me start my video. I'm sorry. You can see me. Hi.
Oh, good. Hi.
Sorry about that. Yeah, then I'm going to be transitioning into what? I don't know exactly.
Yeah. Well, all
I'll
this
probably
knowledge, where is
keep
it going to
working a little
go?
bit. Well, I don't know. I'm going to meet and look at different options because I want to still keep working a little bit, but not. I was just like done with full-time climate change.
Yeah.
I've seen some of your posts on LinkedIn about, it is mentally stressful.
All of it. Yeah. Which
Yeah,
part?
and I've been doing it for
You need a
8
break for
years
climate
without
change?
not so much, just more of a, like it's like I've been at a home, what's it called? That home buffet, like a buffet of all you can eat and too much for too long.
Yeah, I know. My head spins every single day.
And so I just want to kind of step back, but not out.
Yeah. Like
and
maybe
not,
focus in on like a project and kind of just be able to focus in on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I have to say it's like really frustrating with the state in that you have to go through so many hoops to do anything and say boo or get anything published or.
Oh, I feel you. I felt such release and relief when I left just the county, which is not as bad as the state. Just the ability for my, to work where needs present themselves and just go.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I like got a nice group that I meet with, like a little support group of people who work in climate change and health, like with the government. So I'll keep
Moral
in touch
support.
with them too, and I don't know where that, where that'll lead. All but one of them left government now. But yeah, I'm gonna meet with different people to see, if there's projects I can help on. And I really I'm interested to see what's going on with the tribes that were affected by the Dixie Fire. Because I lived and worked up there for 35 years, including being the director of a nonprofit, a Native American nonprofit for 4
Gosh,
years.
there's so many needs. It would be a shame to not have your knowledge useful somewhere. And it's good for me to know. I mean, I can keep my eyes out and I can be thinking, because maybe Shasta may have a need. I have the ability to subcontract for the right, skills and projects and things. And if you want to tell me a little bit more about where you think you want to provide value, in which ways, that would be good for me just to know about.
I just don't even know right now.
Yeah,
I'm just
think about it though.
Unplugging from this. One of the things I could share these videos with you that I just got produced by StoryCenter.org. Are you familiar with them?
No,
I think Paula might have worked with them. Anyway, I did some work with them on with some people, and I'll share the link with you. We haven't published it yet, but yeah, I think I want to just maybe be more to the creative and letting somehow getting people's voices out. It's sort of like a partner to the data and the research and that I feel like that alongside authentic voices is really powerful and draws people into the facts and the data in a way that a lot of people are just data, facts, whatever.
Totally. I was just on my end, I feel like I have a lot of need for case studies, really, I want them to be beautiful case studies, where somebody who really understands tribal cultures has gone and really understood what happened there and can communicate it for a tribal audience in a nice looking way, concise, nice looking way, and that being an asset we can use in trainings and websites and presentations and reports and things like that. Just having some of those. Anyways, I'm thinking out loud, but it's good for me to know that you might be available for that kind of thing.
I did go through that Story Center training to learn how to make short videos.
We actually have a filmmaker we just subbed out to, because we're making videos right now for the Tribal Climate Health Project, these little short 5 to 7 minute videos. But yeah, it's
are they on topics like climate and health topics?
Yeah, it's a whole,
that's great.
11 mini series, 11 mini video series, walking through a lot of what we do in our trainings, but we're just trying to bank it in a nice looking way so it's easier to communicate more broadly.
And people can do it on tap, you don't have to present.
Yeah, it's more for, it's not as much of a training as it is just education, general education. It's there when, for anybody to use it. We can use it to build awareness about the program, bring people in for other resources we offer. So yeah,
that's great.
So yeah, all I'm saying is that you don't have, if you ever were to down the line, if we're thinking, you may want to help us out with anything, we have a filmmaker. You don't have to know the nuts and bolts of the production. But there's a whole bunch of work we're finding, it goes into handing the producer the right materials. And so we're steeped in that right now.
Yeah. That's where I'm kind of looking right now, is to try and see what I can do. But I'm also open to where some of just the knowledge I've accumulated can be used. Because I do know my brain just when I do look at things, I see a lot of gaps that other people have put together about climate and health. and different impacts and different populations. And yeah, just things that I've picked up from doing the work over the years. And then the other thing I feel like is one of my strong suits is my age, actually, and having lived in California my whole life. And I was able, like, I was the director of the Roundhouse Council for 4 years. And one of the things we did was we visited all the different sites where there's centers that are funded by the State Department of Education. So I visited a lot of reservations and tribes over those 4 years around the state.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you get it more than anybody. That's why you're so committed to it.
I am. It's my heart's there, you know, and
well, and you're like a rare find. So yeah, let's keep in touch about it all.
Do you ever come in contact with a guy named Marcus Griswold?
Yeah.
Yeah, he reached out to me, so I was going to go meet with him in a couple of weeks and just say hi. And
he's doing some work in Northern California. We've worked a little bit together. Yeah, he's like right in the right space.
It seems like he's doing some good adaptation plans or something like that.
I think he's
Work
getting
with
started on it.
tribes. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I'll send you my personal email and phone number. And then
please do. We don't want to lose you. I know where to find you on LinkedIn anyway.
oh yeah, that's right. I'm usually tagging your things. I can't imagine how you do everything you do.
Well, I'm trying to build up our team, you know, our bench behind us. So so I'm not bottlenecking all these things we're doing. And now
so you can be more coordinating rather than doing it all yourself.
It's hard because I really like to dive deep. So sometimes when I get too far away from the details, I feel less useful, right? Like I need to know it all in order to make the kinds of recommendations that are really impactful. So, but yeah, what's working for me is to try to hand off some of the project management needs to other people so that they're keeping us on track and do it. And then I can hand off and download some assignments and things like that. But when I need to dive back in deep, I can. That's what we're working on. We're in a growth, kind of like figuring out how to grow next phase. But I want to say thank you for trying to connect us formally with CDPH. I think we're on the verge of having open.
Yeah, I think that's a good valued relationship, and with you too, Angie and Paula too.
Yeah, I mean, we want to be seen as a partner to the state on all of this. So yeah.
And I think the work Lisa's doing too is really important. Lisa Hugh.
Totally, she's awesome.
I keep trying to tell everybody with all this new, like generating a new level of online mapping tools, that they need to include the locations of tribes.
Thank you. Yeah, I know.
On the maps, on the state maps, even if it's just a little pinpoint with a number and then a list.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be the name on the map, because there's so many tribes. Just like they might not put every city's name on the map, but
I think in practice they get real scared of it and for good reason, right? Because do you count the reservation lands? What if there is no reservation? Do you count fee to trust lands?
Right.
Do you count,
I think just any recognized tribe, whether it's by the state or the Fed, should be on there. If it's a state map.
Yeah. It seems like they should be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, people at the local level know who their quasi-tribal groups are, that have indigenous people, but they're not recognized by either the state or the feds, but they still have some credibility in the community as indigenous representatives. Yeah, so that's the one thing I keep trying to tell these younger people is get it on the map. If it's not on the map, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. I feel like that's the number one recommendation that's going to come out of this work group for all these agencies is don't forget to throw the map on there. I have got to run to my next thing.
Okay, great talking to you, Angie. and
You
appreciate
too. I mean,
taking a
contact
few
me
minutes to-
anytime. You know, don't be a
Okay.
stranger at all. And I'm going to keep you in mind now for things.
Yeah, and I don't know, if you want me to still participate in this or not. I'm not sure how long or how it would fit in my future, but that's an option too.
Yeah, we don't really have like a strong, this isn't a formal committee or anything. So I feel like to the extent you still want to participate, I guess you'd be volunteering.
Yeah, I guess so for now. I'll see. I mean, it's only once a month, but and I'm, I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
Who's to tell?
Okay.
Going forward.
Well, yeah. Well, you let me know as things change for you. Okay.
I will.
Okay.
Good to talk with you. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.